Airship.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Airship 27 Productions podcast number 60. I'm Chief Engineer Rob Davis, alongside my co-host, Captain Ron Fortier.
Greetings, loyal airmen, and welcome to another episode. Hey, I want to thank all you for listening in. We're going to talk a little bit about that in a second, but apparently the numbers are going up on the show, and that's awesome. So before we do anything else, thank you. All right.
Yes.
And now, okay, let's go with what people. Yes, it's bad joke time. And Captain Ron gets to start us off.
Goes first.
Yeah, so listen up. Here we go. One day, Professor Albert Einstein had to speak at a very important science conference. On the way there, he tells his driver, who just happens to look like him a little bit, "I'm sick of all these conferences. I always have to say the same things over and over again." The driver agrees. "You're right, Professor. As your driver, I've attended many of them, and even though I don't know anything about science, I could give that conference in your place." "That's a great idea," says Einstein. "Let's switch places." All right, so they switch clothes, and as soon as they arrive, the driver dresses up like Einstein, goes up on the stage, and starts giving the same usual speech, while the real Einstein, dressed as the car driver, sits off to the side. Well, in the crowd, there's one scientist who wants to impress everyone and thinks of a very difficult question he's going to pose to Einstein in hope of tripping him up. So this guy stands up and interrupts the conference by posing his very difficult question. The whole room is shocked into silence, holding their breath, waiting for a response. Meanwhile, the fake Einstein looks at the guy dead in the eye and says, "Sir, that question is so easy, I'm going to let my driver answer it."
I saw that one coming, but it's still funny.
Yeah, all right. Placed it on his own Picard, as we'd say. All right? Yeah. And with that stinker, you've got an hour before you hear Rob's matching gag joke. So there we go. All right. Hey, take the first agenda, buddy. Let's get this show rolling.
All right. A Western podcast. Before we go too far into this episode, we want to give a loud shout out to a new half-hour bi-weekly podcast. That's a new one. Entirely dedicated to the Western genre called Six Gun Justice Podcast. It is hosted by veteran writers Paul Bishop and Richard Prosch and covers the entire spectrum of Westerns from movies to television, comics, and paperback novels. Old classics a la the Magnificent Seven to newer horse operas by today's new pulp Western writers. Paul and Richard do a great job covering them all. You can find their website at www.sixgunjustice.com, and that's SIX, not the number 6, but SIX, gunjustice.com. And they have a Facebook page as well. Go to either to find a link to their show. We think you buckaroos out there will love this show. Tell them Ron and Rob sent you.
There you go. Yeah, I listened. They launched this last week, Rob, and they wanted to do like a little preview podcast, pretty much like what we did way back when we started this show.
Right.
So they did one which they called the 0 episode. All right. And so basically it was fun, and they introduced each other and explained what this show is going to about. And they talked about a few Westerns while on there, a lot of the 50s Westerns that I know you and I grew up enjoying. Okay. Yep. Things like Gunsmoke and Have Gun Will Travel, The Rifleman,
that's
and
all those stuff on ETV now. On Saturdays, Teresa is glued to the TV. She's a huge Western TV show fan. I love some of them too.
Yeah.
My favorites are like Bonanza and Wild Wild West. Those are my
Oh,
favorites.
oh yeah, right. So check out Six Gun Justice. I mean,
Yes.
we need more westerns across the boards, people. Okay, they're fun. All right. So hey, numbers continue to rise. Is what I had alluded to a little earlier. Last episode, we mentioned how membership in the new Facebook Pulp Factory group was continuing to grow. Well, we are now happy to report that that hasn't slowed down at all. And as of today, Rob, we have 253 members, all of which should be, extremely well for us at this year's Pulp Factory Award nominations. With so many new members from all the new pulp fields, it only makes sense that some members will have read more stories from a larger field of publishers. All right.
Absolutely.
Right. So Van Plexico has already posted that he and fellow award coordinator Gordon Namowski are already in talks on how they will be tweaking the nominations and voting process to accommodate the new Pulp Factory group. All members should continue to visit the page on a regular basis to keep up with any new developments and be ready for when Van and Gordon kick off this year's nomination dates. Well, they have started that. I'm sure you've noticed, all right?
Right.
And
Yeah.
so what happens is nominations go till, I believe Gordon posted February the 24th.
Right. I believe that's
Okay.
correct. I
So
need to get mine together. I
okay.
haven't put mine together yet.
So all members of the Pulp Factory group can nominate in the 5 categories, all right, which I'll repeat real quick here. Best pulp novel, best pulp short story, best pulp illustrations, cover, and best anthology or collection, all of which had to have been published the previous year in 2019. You can nominate as many in each of these categories. Ultimately, what Gordon and Van do is winnow them all out together, and the lucky entries that get the most votes eventually will make it on the final ballot. And then that's open to the public and people vote. And Rob and I have the great honor and pleasure of handing out the awards to the winners at this year's Windy City Paper and Pulp Show. So again, if you're interested and you haven't joined the Facebook Pulp Factory group, by all means, sign up, hit a request.
The more the merrier.
That's what's happening.
Join up. Yep.
That's what we're saying. So there you go. All right. So your turn, buddy.
All right. Tied in with all this, the podcast audience continues to rise as well. Also, as expected, with an increase in the Pulp Factory membership has come lots of new interest in our little old podcast series. And as of today, our last episode logged in at 80 listeners and viewers. Thank you. Prior to establishing the new Facebook group, our numbers had started to decline in the last few months of 2019. Well, I probably attribute some of the holidays, but nevertheless, so both of us are thrilled that they are climbing once more and hope we can, with your continued support, keep that viewership rising. On that front, any ideas you might have for our monthly show, do feel free to pass them along to either Ron or myself. We really do want to make this an informative, fun show and truly appreciate all of you spending this hour or losing this hour with us each and every month.
I find it absolutely satisfying and gratifying, Rob, that last episode, number 59, ended up being almost an hour and a half. Is easily one of the longest shows we ever did. So obviously, I was a little concerned at viewership, with that. But again, suddenly, and as of this afternoon before we started, I think we're up to like 82 viewers of that particular episode.
Cool.
And I think one of the things that really helped with that episode was that we got some really great questions in from our colleagues. So again, knock on wood, we've got questions for this show as well, which we'll hopefully be digging into, and all of you will appreciate and enjoy. All right, so tell your friends about the show. If they like pulps, tell them to check in the Airship 27 podcast on YouTube. We're here every month. All right, so continued appeal for illustrators. Yeah, as all of you loyal airmen know, if you listen to the show on a regular basis, the biggest challenge we have in putting our books together is to find enough talented artists to do interior illustrations which is why we are constantly bringing this up on the show. In fact, just this past week alone, I had 2 artists who, for personal reasons, were signed on to projects and then notified me that they couldn't do it. They'd received more lucrative gigs and they had to bow out. 1 step forward, 2 steps back. All right. Yep. I mean, I had to notify these writers who I had told initially that, hey, we're getting your book into production, and now write and say, no, it's not in production. I am back on the hunt. Okay. So anyways, look, we'd like you loyal airmen to really be our scouts out there on the internet, on the web, any place, DeviantArt, all these art, sites that are very popular. A lot of artists contribute to, amateurs, professionals alike. All right. And if you see something there that strikes your fancy and you think it's indicative of somebody who could do quality professional work in the illustrative branch of this, then give us a holler or send them to me, send them to Rob. All right.
Yeah.
And tell them what we're doing. I mean, be honest and upfront. They're not going to ever get rich working.
We're not getting rich.
No, nobody does. And it's impossible for us to pay up front. But the truth of the matter is we do have a royalty system in place, and all creators of all the books we do get a percentage after costs are met. Okay. And over the years, those people who've worked with us time and time again do see regular checks. Now, I'm talking $10, $15, $20. But you know what? Every now and then that comes in and buys you a nice cup of coffee or whatever. and again, especially for you young illustrators out there, okay, who'd like to work on a professional project, to have something that you could bring to your next convention and showcase and show off. Airship 27 is the outfit for you. We love nothing better than to helping young creators, both artists and writers, get a step up in this field. Think of it that way, all right? So again, there's that appeal. I'll probably be making it again next month, but thanks for your help regardless.
Yep.
All right, buddy.
Okay, now the big news.
And this is big. Hold on to your seats there, loyal airmen.
Listen up. Airship 27 Productions is returning to Pulp Fest.
Yeah. It's official. There it is. Yes.
Yes, you heard correctly. As most of you loyal airmen know, Airship 27 Productions has been a strong supporter of the Pulp Fest convention since its beginnings when it was held in Columbus, Ohio. Then, several years ago, for valid economic reasons, the con was moved to Pittsburgh, which immediately put it beyond our normal traveling range. I'm the one that brings the books by car to all the conventions we attend, and pushing the con further east immediately in our cost overhead rising. In the end, we worked out a system that required 2 extra night hotel stays, one going and one returning west. Then that first show for us ended up being a bust, and we lost money. Now, ergo, that's our reason not to return. We're sure all of you realize Airship 27 is a small publisher, and whatever monies we earn in this venture eventually go back into the business. There is no big profit margin at the end of the year, but that's all right as we love what we do. Whereas Pulp Fest would end up costing us more money than we could recoup at the show. Again, it made no sense to return until there was a chance that would change. And that's all about attendance. The more people that come to the show, the better our chances of selling enough books to break even. Now, the first 2 years after we stopped attending were dismal, as reported by our colleagues in attendance. Then last year, we learned that the attendance tally was about 450. As we've been doing this for a while, we know that's a very decent number for a weekend pulp show. It sounds small when you compare it to big comic book conventions, right. But this is a niche market, and 450 people is a good number. True to our past promises, we put our heads together and discussed the possibility of making 2020 the year Airship 27 returns to Pulp Fest. In the end, we worked out a new traveling arrangement and have booked both our membership and 2 vendors' tables. So yes, loyal airmen, Airship 27 is gearing up to fly to Pittsburgh for this year's show. We're excited as we've truly missed the last few years, and we are keeping all fingers crossed that this will be both a fun and profitable trip. It's no doubt we'll love seeing lots of our old friends, but we do need to sell books as well. In the coming months, we'll keep you posted here. We truly hope to see you all in Pittsburgh come August. And as we get closer, uh, if if you want any of our books, any of our older books, because we'll be taking the uh, newer books that we print up more than likely. But if there's an older book that you want a copy of and you're going to be at the show, I can order those for you as well. And we'll talk more about that as time goes by. But that I'll just put that one right up front for you. That's definitely that's a good thing to do if you want to make sure that we have the book for you at the show, and it's something that's at least a year or two old.
Yep. Hey, thanks, Rob. Nicely said. We have both really missed Pulp Fest in the last 3 years. All right, it is really a fun show, and it's well promoted. It's well handled. They've always got great guests over the weekend. This year, in fact, our old friends Bob Dice and Wyatt Dole are bringing the 1950s Men's Adventure magazine model Ava Lund, who's going to be a guest, and on I believe Saturday night she will be on the stage with Bob and Wyatt, interviewing her and talking about her career as she posed for so many of those men's adventure magazines in the 50s, 60s, and early 70s. So again, this is a great show. We're thrilled to be going back and being a part of it again. We hope you are as well. Again, we wanted to keep this special announcement for the podcast, a little incentive for all of you to, hey, watch the show, because this is where we let some of this stuff go first. All right. Hopefully in a few weeks, or even within a few days after the show itself is posted and aired, and we give all our friends and colleagues an opportunity to view it, then Rob's excellent logo is going to start getting plastered all over the internet, because we want to do our part in promoting this year's Pulp Fest.
Cool. Yep.
There you go. All right. Hey, look, time to look at what we've been up to creatively as i.e. release since our last show. Bulldog, Drummond, Disaster Zones. This second in the series contains 3 adventures as written by Ian Watson, the author who helped develop this modern version of the classic 1920s pulp hero. Howard Simpson's turned in 9 beautiful black and white interior illustrations, and then, much to our delight and surprise, offered to do 4 character sketches as a bonus feature in the back of the book. This is something Howard worked out with writer Ian Watson, unbeknown to Rob and I, until we were about ready to put the book together.
Sprang it on me the last minute.
Hey, Rob, we need 4 more pages.
Yeah.
Anyway, so yeah, it's thanks, Howard. And that's going above and beyond. These are the kind of people that we love to work with too. Okay, Chris Rowden teamed up with Rob to produce a terrific cover, part of which, all right, pays homage to Mort Kunstler, one of the greatest pulp artists of all time. Our good friends Bob Dice and Wyatt Dole, who we just mentioned, recently published a fantastic book of Kunstler's work called The Godfather of Pulp Fiction Illustrators. And you can find it at Amazon today. Meanwhile, we are also thrilled to announce that Ian, who is having a blast writing this, has told us there is a 3rd Bulldog Drummond's book in the works. Who knows? We might see it by the end of the year. So there you go. Yeah. But you might want to talk a little bit about how that cover came together.
Well, Ron always has these ideas about what he wants. So he goes on the internet, Googles up some pictures of something similar to what he wants. So you found, what was it, Statham or who was it?
Jason Statham is our model for.
And he's got, and he's it's in a profile, and then he's got this 45 automatic next to him, and that kind of inspired him. And so I took, and of course he's got a bald head, but I took and put a baseball cap on his head, and then made him look a lot more like the character that we had on the last cover.
Right.
There's an actor that we use, but we're not saying who. But yeah, but there's an actor that we use as our idea of what we think he should look like. And so I found a photo of him and found one in profile and kind of superimposed. I'm using Photoshop here. And then I took the illustration that Ron was talking about by Mort Kunstler, and I put it on the light table, and I changed the costumes and eliminated some extraneous stuff in it. And we put those two images together, married them one on top of the other, and then gave that off to Chris. And then he created a nice, very colorful, stylistic cover. And
it's a pulp cover. It's really a great pulp cover.
Definitely.
And one of the things that I was thinking about was after Rob did his initial mock-up of it, the bigger picture of Bulldog at the top that he mentioned with his 45 in that profile had a blank background. And I was thinking, well, we just don't want it to be blank. And then I realized what we'd done in the first cover, which had used the Union Jack as the background.
Right.
And I suddenly realized we can make that like an iconic mode on each cover, because Bulldog is Captain Hugh Drummond, a former military member of the SAS, an elite British commando group. So that's our new take on, again, one of the greatest classic pulp characters from the 1920s. Yeah. And so now we have two books out there. Bulldog Drummond Disaster Zones is now available at Amazon in both paperback, like we all do, and it's also on Kindle. So we hope you will give it a shot.
Yeah, I was looking for I'm right next to my drawing table here, and I thought I had the pencil drawing that I did, but it's not.
Well, I
was going to show it. I was going to show it to the camera, but it's not available.
What was funny?
Sparky will probably put up the actual cover if we give him a copy.
Yeah, right. He does.
So
he does.
He'll put the imagery up there. But I was going to show off the pencil sketch I did. But it's not right where I thought it was. But.
I just wanted to add that the whole idea, when I actually saw the action sequence that Mort Kunstler done from his men's magazines online when I was Googling to find something to work for the cover. And so that's what we went for. Believe it or not, we had that going when Bob and Wyatt sent me a copy of Mort Kunstler, the godfather of pulp illustrations. And I'm flipping through it, and there it is, the same one that we were using. So those of you who do pick up the book, the Bulldog Drummond book, you will see a notice, all right, which is only fair what you do in swipes like this, is that it'll say front cover by Rob Davis and Chris Roding after Mort Kunstler. And we tip our hat. Kunstler, Rob, the man's in his 80s and he's still working.
Is he still around?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. One of the coolest things about the new book that Bob and Wyatt put out is the introduction, which Kunstler wrote himself. There's a little what do you call, a little memoir that goes like 3 or 4 pages about his life and career. And there's pictures of him at work and whatever. Fascinating. I recommend the book highly.
Okay, I'll have to look for a copy of that. So anyway, what's next? What's come? That's exactly what it is. What's coming next? As ever, our crystal ball is never 100% in predicting these things, but we can make qualified guesses according to where certain books are in our queue. The Eye of Dawn is a thriller about immortals living in secret among us and was written by Brad Sinor. Artist Clayton Merwin is nearly finishing the interior illustrations, and once he is finished, the book should come together fast. Meanwhile, Rob is now doing the illustrations or all kinds of stuff keep getting in the way, and this time of year, my energy level is a little lower than usual, so I haven't gotten really going on this. But on the drawing table are the illustrations for Nancy Hansen's newest Jezebel Johnston Pirate Queen saga, subtitled Sisters of Vengeance. And this is kind of a side story. This one's not set necessarily at sea like the other ones were. Jezebel Johnston gets taken out of the sea and elsewhere. And that's all I'm going to say. You have to get the book to get the rest of it.
No spoilers. No spoilers. All right.
No
There you go.
spoilers.
Right.
This will be the 5th book in this truly amazing series. At the same time, 2 other books are moving down the pike. Artist Kevin Broden has begun work on the next Bay Phantom thriller by Chuck Miller, and artist Mike Harris is soon to start illustrating an alternate world adventure written by Airship 27 Pro, Gene Moyers. So as you can see, lots of great pulps coming your way in the months ahead.
Yeah. And one of the things that we've added since I put the agenda together, and I should have caught that before sending it to you, and that's going back to The Eye of Dawn, the Brad Siner thriller, which
Right.
should be our next release. It's a hands down.
It's looking that way, yeah.
Yeah, right. We've recruited Ted Hammond to do the cover, and that's going to be a knockout.
He's amazingly fast and amazingly crisp, and it just amazes me how quick he can do this.
Yeah,
do these covers. Just
I love his work. I absolutely love it.
Stunning work. It is just stunning work. Yeah. Okay.
Well, hey, here we go. It's what we were talking about at the start of the show. We have more questions, and so thank you to the 3 people who this time stepped up to the plate and offered us, some questions about what we do in personal things and business things. The first one is our good friend, Brian K. Morris, all right, who reads, well, since I made the cut last time, here's a question I hope your listeners will dig. How many submissions does Airship 27 get in the course of a year? To follow up, what percentage of that total winds up not making the initial cut, and why? Okay, well, obviously, I'm going to take that one, all right?
Yeah, that's a Ron question.
That's a Ron question because Ron's the guy who handles the fiction, okay? Anything dealing with art gets shunned off to my partner and art director, Rob, here, okay? So, okay, I love that question. I don't have, direct, numbers or keep those kind of things. But in looking back over the decades that we've been doing this, as Airship 27 continued to reach out and get a broader audience and a more loyal audience over the years, obviously the number of submissions coming my way began to increase and continue to increase, okay? So that I can probably safely say in the course of a year now, these days, in the course of a year, I probably get between 20 and 25 submissions from people who've never worked with us before. I want to quantitate that. I don't want to talk about what we call our staple of writers, okay? Right. Those guys come to me once a month a lot of times with an idea for another Black Bat story or another Sherlock Holmes story. And the guys we work with all the time, that's expected. And the reason, Brian, that I'm not including it in an answer to your specific question is because they are veterans of Airship 27. They know our procedures. They know what we like, what we want, how to submit stories, all those kind of things. Right. So basically they're saying, hey, Ron, I've got a new Sherlock Holmes or a new Domino Lady story. Well, if you've done 3 or 4 others for me, my immediate answer is send her in. We're done. It's basically let me read and edit it and we put books together. So from those people who've never worked with us, who are sending me letters of inquiry, all right, the number is probably 20 to 25.
A year.
A year.
Okay.
Yeah. All right. So
wow. That's a couple a month.
Yeah, it is.
Average. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Wow.
Now, how many of those don't make the cut? What's the percentage? Honestly, I would say almost 50% don't.
Yeah.
Okay. And this is why, Brian. All right. Because they've maybe picked up 1 or 2 copies of an Airship 27 title. All right. And have not really done their homework as to look at us on our website, our webpage, all right, and made themselves familiar with the type of stories and books that we publish. I get a lot, Rob, you'd be surprised, of Conan-type fantasy submissions.
Okay.
Which we just don't do. All right. Like
not really. No. We've never done anything quite like that. No sword and sorcery type stuff.
No. Exactly. And I get a heck of a lot of those. All right. And again, it's not because we don't, outright don't want to do them. All right. For the most part, I'm getting them from people who, when I read their letters of inquiry, have never been published before. There's an amateur tint to what they're doing, and I almost get the sense they're just going to copy what they've already seen in other fantasy books whatsoever. And the trouble with most fantasy fiction I see out there today, guys, is that nobody just does a single fantasy book. Ultimately, it's like, it's book one of a 20 saga thing or whatever.
Oh God, yeah.
And again, that's not what we do here. So I'm not saying publicly that we would never do a good sword and sorcery novel, all right? But it would take a hell of a great letter of inquiry and submission sample to convince me, all right, that it would be something you and I would want to tackle, all right, and put out there, all right? So that's one avenue.
Why that's been represented in pulps. It's representative of pulps. It was early in pulps, but the thing is, it's highly represented in today's publishing world, and we're looking at bringing stuff back that isn't on the bestseller list. We want some of the little more obscure stuff and bring it back and show people what that kind of stuff was like. Almost everybody knows what sword and sorcery is like. There's Game of Thrones. There's all kinds of stuff like that out there for them to see. And we're trying to bring back some of the stuff that is a little more, slightly more obscure.
Okay, and then the other pieces that I reject outright are things that are ridiculously wild. Okay, I mean, absolutely out there, and in large part, a lot of them are comic book centric. Like they want to do superhero stuff. All right, superheroes battling. Oh, I have this great idea for a realistic superhero novel, which is down and dirty and gritty, and I'm like, well, then do it as a comic book, okay? If it's a comic book, then do it as a comic book. I am not putting down doing comic book prose novels, but it's an awkward thing at best to pull off successfully, believe me, all right? We just recently published a rate. Frank Dershel is one of the few writers who've been able to do a character that works very well in both prose and comics, which is why it was our delight to do that anthology, all right? But for the most part, the entries I get from people just do not make that work. Now, let's add, there's always exceptions to the rule, right, Rob? And
always.
The truth of the matter is, we publish a series called Pulp Mythology, which crosses close to that sword and sorcery. And as far as an outright fantasy, and I mean pure fantasy saga, if all goes well, and I can find an artist, okay, the record repeats itself. I have actually, Rob, you're not familiar with this because, again, you don't get involved with the process until the books are assembled or we get them going. Mm-hmm. I actually have a fantasy series in the works, written by who else? Nancy Hansen.
That's right. That's her specialty. Yeah.
Nancy,
she loves that kind of stuff.
Nancy came to me 2 years ago after we started doing the Pirate Queen saga, right? And basically said, Ron, I have a long fantasy saga. And she started spelling it out. And it's all the things that I tend to shy away from. Yeah. Why didn't I this time? Only because it was Nancy.
It's Nancy.
It's Nancy.
And she's
Nancy's
good. She is really
brilliant writer. She
does her research.
Well, and this is a different cup of tea, Rob. This thing has the kitchen sink in it, and she's turned in 2 novels. She's turned in volumes 1 and 2. They're sitting in my files, and God willing, I could find an artist to do justice to these amazing characters she's developed. This thing is fantastic. It's got gods and demons and an apocalyptic world and whatever. And like I said, Nancy basically let her imagination run wild. It's a powerful saga. So yeah, we're going to do that. Now, another thing that's Rob and I probably will never do ever is romance novels. Okay, so it's you got Harlequin books out there, people. Yeah, go to them. Yeah, okay, right? Yeah. Okay, so again, Brian, the answer pretty much is simply 50% of the stuff that gets sent to me is amateurish. All right, it's people who haven't honed their craft as writers. All right, or the ideas themselves, although might have a nugget of good stuff, they're half baked. and they need to be, a little bit more thought out. I mean, I get submissions where people send me an entire book without even asking me for it, which is a no-no. Okay, I mean,
Yeah,
if you
don't do that. That creates all kinds of problems. Send a synopsis.
a
And
letter of inquiry
yeah,
is number
letter.
one. The first thing
That's
you
number
do
one. Yeah,
First thing you do is whenever contacting a new publisher, including Airship 27, is write me or Rob a letter of inquiry, which is basically, hi, I'm interested in working with you. What are you guys looking for? And we'll gladly answer. We'll get back to you
sure.
and whatever. And for the most part, most of the submissions I get, even those I turn down, have a letter of inquiry. But again, like I say, and here's the fun of all this, okay? What's the word I want to use? My reaction when I open my emails in the morning, and of that 20 or 25, I see a new submission. It's like I flip a coin and go, please let it be something good. And 50% are.
That's not
50%,
bad.
that is
That's
not
not
bad.
bad.
And, and,
Really.
and by that, I'm saying these are people that either they've never worked with us, but I already know who they are. They're established new pulp writers in the community that I have seen work for other publishers. And now they're knocking on our door. And you better know I'm very receptive to, receiving, what they've sent me. A classic example of that is two writers. One is named Tyler Offhammer, all right, who has been writing this stuff for about 10 years. I've reviewed several of his books. And last year he sent me a novel. Boom. I went, okay, very receptive, read the first couple of chapters, because that's what he sent me with a letter of inquiry, and we bought it. It's in my files, okay? And then another well-known new pulp writer is Teal Glenn James.
Yes.
And Teal last year first came to me at the start of the year, and since that time, Rob has sent us 2 novels. So
Cool.
2 writers that we've never published before will now be working for Airship 27. If I can find artists. Help me, please help me. So, Brian,
I can only do so many, folks. And like I said, this time of year, my energy level is kind of low. I get a very mild case of what's called SAD, seasonal affective disorder. When the weather's overcast and there's snow on the ground and it's cold, I just want to curl up in my bed and sleep all day and all night. But yeah, that's again reiterating, that's our biggest stumbling block on a lot of these books is illustrators for the interiors. We have a good number of people who can do covers, but we really are searching hard for folks to do the interiors. I'm going to emphasize this again because that is what we're looking for most. But yeah,
hey, look,
if you know anybody, hey,
right,
send them our way. We'll take a look at them.
Yep. I don't stop looking, people. This isn't a case where I throw in the towel and say, why are we doing this? Okay. I don't. It's a challenge to Rob and I, and we accept that challenge. It's because we love what we do here with publishing these books and introducing you to all these new talents.
And it's a tough job. It can be a really tough job. It's not,
most frustrating at times.
Yeah.
Like I said, I had these 2 guys lined up. Doing books, both qualified, both talented artists, and then they're gone. Blink of an eye, they're gone. Now Rob's working with a 14-year-old girl who I discovered locally. All right. She's not 100% ready, but she has so much talent. Rob's going to be mentoring her and helping her along. All right.
Yep. Probably more as after school is out, because right now she's really concentrating on what she should be concentrating, and that's school.
Yes.
Exactly. But I've seen some of her stuff, and we've gone back and forth a little bit. And I'm trying to help her along. She's got the desire, which is about half of what you need. The rest of it is just teaching you technique and skills.
It's work. It's the hard work involved. Okay.
Yeah. It's
her name
work you got to do.
Right. And then I was going to say, there's an old friend of mine that I did some comics work with many, many years ago that I've recently been thinking about that I think might be available to do some illustration work. So I'm going to reach out and give them a call. But anyways, hey, Brian, thanks. This is really an excellent question. I really appreciate it. I don't get much chance to talk about the process of what we do here at Airship 27. So that was very insightful. Really appreciate it. And thanks. Okay, let's just take the next one.
All right. Gordon Domowski asks, Have you ever considered doing an anthology around a gentleman thief type character, like Raffles or Arsène Lupin? Both characters I am not familiar with. Again, that's a Ron type question.
Yeah, well,
However,
yeah, good,
however,
good, good.
I find that is a really intriguing idea. I guess that it would depend on us getting folks to sign on to write and do illustrations for it. But I'll hand this off to you again.
Well, Raffles is a British gentleman thief.
I figured that from the name, it sounded very British.
Okay,
Sounded
and then we
UK.
go
Yeah,
across the pond to France, and you have Arsène Lupin. Okay,
yeah.
which was
Lupin.
again that
Yeah.
kind of thing. All right. Now, to answer Gordon's question about, have we ever considered doing anthologies about such classic characters? I think Lupin is public domain. Okay, and I'm not
Check.
100% sure if Raffles is. All right. But yeah, we've definitely considered, and it's basically, what Rob said. It's a case of I need writers to come to me and say, "Hey, I'd like to write, an Arsène Lupin story for you, or another character in that vein," and and those are fun characters to write. Okay. But they go back all the way again. Now we got to stay in the same field here. They go back all the way to the gentleman adventurers like Simon. What's his
Simon
name?
Templar.
Simon Templar, the Saint. Right. Okay.
Yeah,
And
that's who
so
immediately came to mind with that.
right. And hey, that goes back. Templar was influenced by who? All right. You, Bulldog Drummond. Which we're doing, all right, which we are actually doing, the gentleman adventurer.
Right.
Granted, we've changed him a little bit and made him a little, rougher around the edges, but he is that character that you're talking about, Gordon, all right? So, what was it? I remember.
Well, gentleman thief. I don't is well, no Drummond. He said even if it's illegal, he'd do it.
That's
That's true.
the point. Now,
Yeah, and I also thought of the guy that from the TV show "It Takes a Thief," played by Robert Wagner.
yeah,
I'm forgetting the guy's name,
right,
forgetting
but
the character's name,
okay,
but the name of the show was "It Takes a Thief,"
yeah,
which was it was loosely based on the movie with Cary Grant.
exactly.
Very very loosely based on that. But yeah, that's the kind of character that comes to mind, and that could be really interesting stuff if you get some really good writers writing it. Yeah,
If
it could
it's
be a
done
lot
right,
of fun.
correctly, yeah. We're not adverse to that at all, Gordon. And
Oh,
it's not a case of it's not something we want to do. I'd love to do it. All right, I would very much love to do it. In fact, if a writer out there right now, all right, if somebody listening to the show, uh, basically said, well, you know what, I can create one of those characters for you and
yeah,
use that iconic mold. Hey, again, give me a holler. All right. Let me know what you've come up with. And if you can follow those same kind of tropes where I'm trying to think, there was another character too. There was another French character. Oh God, it's going to drive me crazy.
look
Um,
at me.
I don't know if it was Arsène Lupin or who else, but they ultimately even made movies in 1930 with this other French character who was again a gentleman thief. And the idea was he was like a Robin Hood character, Rob, where
Ah,
he robbed and most of the money went to impoverished people in the neighborhood, the communities, or whatever. All right. Which is pretty much the Moon Man. All right. And pulp
right.
wise,
Hmm.
whatever. So again, hey, if you're that person out there who wants to write something like this, you've got a great idea for a character, send it in. We'll gladly look at it,
Yeah,
ask you
take
to
a look
write a
at it.
Bible. I
Might
mean,
need to tweak it. Yeah.
yeah, but hey, Gordon, it's a good question, and it's really a good idea. If we could come up with something that both plays tributes to the tradition of these kind of gentlemen thieves, at the same time offering our readers something new and fresh, we'll jump on it faster than you can say hey, Cracker Jack. There you go. Okay. All right, and the last one, which isn't going to be that difficult, but it's going to be fun. Jamie Ramos. All right. Who is your favorite pulp villain?
Dr. Sate.
Go, Rob.
He's cut from the same cloth, scene-chewing villains from old serials and comics. I really enjoyed drawing him in the comic strip series Ron and I did a good number of years ago. He's just he is over the top evil. So I mean,
Oh,
he calls
the
himself
costume, the
Dr.
costume.
Fate.
He's dressed
I
all in
love it.
red, got a horned helmet with the horns, all right, and then has these two absolutely
Oh my
bizarre henchmen,
gosh.
all right. One of them has no legs, all right, Gurus, and he hops. No, Boss. Is it Gurus? I'm trying to think which one it is. Bostif. Bostif's this giant of a man with
Looks
no
like an
legs,
ape. He's a
right?
giant ape-like man.
Ah,
Yeah.
that's Gurus. Gurus is the monkey man. Gurus
Yeah.
is the small, impish monkey man, and
Yes.
Kostov is the big, muscular guy with no legs who hops around on his knuckles. All right, and
Man,
when you read the original
how
stories,
weird is that? You
oh,
know?
it's creepy. It's just creepy. Now, again, Rob and I have had fun playing with Dr. Satan in the comic strips that we did together, and then I've included him. I used him in two stories. I did a story with him
Yeah.
with the Black Bat, and then recently had him pop up in a Brother Bones story. All right, because he's so much fun to work with. I know Barry Reese used him in a lot of his Peregrine novels as well. All right, so Dr. Satan's a classic pulp villain. Now, others out there, there have been others. And the first one, I got to tell you, Rob, wasn't Satan so much that popped up in my head as Dr. Fu Manchu.
Yes. Yes. Yeah, classic. Good classic.
I mean, in books, on radio, in comics. I mean, Marvel used him as what? The father of Shang-Chi,
Yeah.
right? And
Uh-huh.
and there's a Shang-Chi movie now in production.
Yes,
Marvel
that looks really
Studios.
good.
Wonderful to see Fu Manchu pop up in that. All right.
I
And
don't
then
know. He's public domain, so yeah, he
and
could
of
pop up.
course, if any of you people out there are really fans of that particular character in the series, I remember Bruce Lee did a bunch of movies with him. Not Bruce, excuse me, I didn't mean Bruce Lee. I meant Christopher Lee. That's why,
Christopher Lee. Okay.
right? We're talking
Playing he
martial
played
arts.
Fu Manchu.
Christopher
Christopher
Lee
Lee
played
did. Yeah.
with makeup and
Okay.
everything, right? And there was another guy named Henry Brandon who did a 12-part Republic Pictures, The Drums of Fu Manchu. It's a classic serial. It is so much fun. All right, and we can't not talk about Fu Manchu without mentioning our dear buddy and amigo Bill Maynard, who has,
Yes.
I believe now, I think he's written 3 new Fu Manchu books. And I don't know so much about license. I think that some part of it's like
He's authorized. He's authorized. I think Fu Manchu may be public domain, but the family of the losing his name, but Sax Romer, that's his name, created the character, and I think his family still exerts a little bit of control over him. I think that might be a trademark thing rather than copyright, but he's actually got authorization from the family to do these books,
I have read
which
them.
gives him a lot of clout in that respect.
Bill is a fantastic writer, and
And he is a good writer. Yeah.
His Fu Manchu books are. He's got the voice of Romer down pat. They're excellent books. So yeah, so there's a couple right off the top of our heads, okay, of classic pulp villains. All right, who, like I said, whose effect lasts for ages. And of course, I mean, if you look back on the classic pulp heroes, all right, and I don't wonder if Gordon was also talking about this too. You look at people like Doc Savage or The Shadow, right? Doc Savage had a guy named John Sunlight, I believe, who was his opposite number, a brilliant, mad genius, all right, who combated him, and I think at least several Doc Savage
Okay.
novels,
Yeah.
all right? And then The Shadow had an Oriental villain. Oh, what was his name? If you saw the movie with Alec Baldwin, they made sure to have
Yes.
him pop
That
up
character
there.
was in there. Yes, I can't
Right.
think of his name either.
Right, who again was a recurring villain in these Shadow Annuals, as written by Walter Gibson. So yeah, the pulps were really fantastic. I'm trying to remember there was one pulp series, Rob, and again they were riffing off Fu Manchu, so they decided they were going to do it in a magazine series of this Oriental villain, and they called him Yang Sin, S-I-N, Yang Sin.
Yes, I've seen the covers for that.
Right.
Yes,
Well, the
really
point
interesting
is
stuff. Yeah.
they only did 1 or 2, and they didn't sell. So they decided they already had stories in the can, which wasn't unusual. You already had stories. So they decided, well, we'll just change his name, and the good guy Fed agents fighting him. So the next issue of Yang Sin comes out, and it's the octopus.
Did that sell any better?
No, not really. It died out after one issue. So it's a classic, the octopus.
That
okay?
may have been all they had left. Is one
Yeah,
more.
right. Just get it in print and then do it. All right. Which again is makes you wonder if that didn't somehow or other get the notice of comic book great Will Eisner. Because when he wrote The Spirit, ultimately the Spirit's arch enemy, who you never really saw, was named the Octopus. So all these things are tied together. Say, there you go, Jamie. I hope you appreciate that. And that was a really good question. Okay, because again, villains are fun. All right. I mean, you can't do a good pulp hero unless they have a dastardly mean rotten villain.
Think of the Fantastic Four, Doctor Doom.
There you go. Yeah,
you can't have the Fantastic Four without Doctor Doom.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of, and like the Avengers with Ultron and Kang the Conqueror. There's stuff like that. In order to make the character that much better, he's got to have something strong to go against. There's that conflict there. If the superhero could just overcome anything,
get boring real quick.
Real quick. That's why Superman's so hard to write sometimes.
Yeah. And that's why, good fiction, good stories. You need that push, like Rob said. You need a challenge to face your hero and make him heroic, all right, or her heroic as the table turns. Hey, one thing I wanted to say, and then we'll get on to Rob's joke of the episode. But since Jamie did post that question, we'd mentioned Jamie to a lot of you in the past. Jamie is a writer. He is an editor and a publisher, a Pulp Factory Award-winning publisher, by the way.
Yes.
And Jamie is also on dialysis, okay, because Jamie has bad kidneys. And this has been going on now for over a year, at least over a year. But he's one of those guys who doesn't throw in the towel, who doesn't let it get him down, all right? But if he were to be blessed with a new kidney, it would change his life forever for the better. And so we put out this plea in past episodes, and I want to bring it back up in this one and repeat it one more time. Look, if you're out there and you're young, you're in fairly good, healthy shape, and you've ever given the thought, all right, of donating and helping a worthy and really great individual, okay, maybe save their lives, give it some thought, okay? And if that kind of thing appeals to you and you really want to think it through and you'd like to get in touch with Jamie, give me or Rob a call and we'll gladly make that happen. So, hey, thanks for listening. Okay, Rob.
I have one more thing.
Oh.
Because you had a little line here. Anything else? And I had a thought about something here. I'd like to make a request of those of our loyal airmen who have read Consulting Detective Volume 14. On Amazon, that book has only garnered one review titled Disappointing. That has some inaccuracies in it about the book and disparages it in favor of another Holmes anthology at Amazon. Ascribe to that whatever you want. What I'd like those of you who have actually read it to go to Amazon and post a thoughtful, accurate review of Consulting Detective Volume 14. I don't expect all 5-star reviews, but would like to see a more accurate reflection of the book in the review score it has received because of this one review. I thank you in advance. Anybody who's read that book, go online, tell them what you really think about the book. I'm not asking everybody to go on and put 5s. I'm asking you to go on and give a really good and accurate description of the book and what you thought of it. Okay?
Wow.
Because we need to do something to kind of to offset that kind of negative. And I suspect I'm not even going to say it because.
Right.
But anyway, I would like to. that's a plea that I put out. Okay.
That's sadly one of the vulnerabilities of things like Amazon and
Right.
review things. Okay, where petty people, okay, who for whatever reason, okay, don't like to see other people successful, can vent their spleens, if you will, all right, in a public forum like that. And like Rob said, if Rob's read it, and then I take Rob's word to heart, okay, whatever this guy wrote is BS.
It's inaccurate. It's inaccurate. It's not vicious. It's not mean. It's just inaccurate. You can go online and read it for yourself, and you'll see what those of you who've actually read the book, you'll see what I'm talking about. It's not, again, it's not mean and vicious. It doesn't use, it's otherwise
Right.
I could contact Amazon and say, take this one down. It's just inaccurate in what it says about the book.
Wow.
But
all right. Well, okay.
okay.
Yeah. We would appreciate your help, Loyal Airman, please. If you read the book, if you actually read the book, please leave us a review, an honest review. That's all we ever.
It takes a few minutes.
Yeah.
And read over Amazon has some rules about reviews now, so be sure and read those over. You can't just go in and talk about transactions and all this other stuff. You have to really talk about issues within the book. Go check those out. It takes a few minutes, but if you would please go do that. We would appreciate it very much.
We'd be very grateful. Yep.
All right.
Okay.
Now.
All right. Rob's joke.
Now stop being so serious, Rob. Okay, here's my joke. And as usual, I tried to do something that was kind of topical for the time of year. Okay. Over breakfast one morning, a woman said to her husband, "I bet you don't know what day it is." "Of course I do," he answered indignantly as he slammed the door and drove to his office. At 11 o'clock, the doorbell rang. The wife answered, and there at her front door was a UPS driver. In his hand was a box containing 12 red roses. Later, at 2 p.m., there was another knock at the door. This time, it was a deluxe box of Belgian chocolates. Eventually, the husband came home, tired after a hard day's work. His wife greeted him by saying, "First the flowers, then the chocolates. I've never had a more wonderful Groundhog Day in my life."
Oh, okay. Yeah. Oh, that's funny. That's good. That's hilarious and topical, as Rob said. There you go.
On two fronts, it's topical because you thought it was Valentine's Day, didn't you?
Yeah, I'm going. Yeah, he's going to be talking about, because come on, okay. 2 days after the Christmas holidays are done, you go to the stores and they're already putting up Valentine's cards. Come on, guys, all right, give us a breather in there,
Yeah.
But yeah, so yeah, I did think it was Valentine's. That's funny. Wow, okay, good one. All right, hey, Loyal Airman, once again. You have wasted a perfectly good hour of your life with me and Rob, and for that we are heartfelt thanks. And to everybody who sends in questions, thank you. You make the show that much better. We really appreciate that.
Yep. Sharp.
Yep. And for Brant and the entire staff at Zone 4, thanks a lot, guys, for making this possible and getting us out there. Hey, if you have fun with the show and you like it, recommend it to your friends. We'd like to see those numbers keep climbing, and we will see you back here next month for who knows what kind of devilry.
We'll talk more about Pulp Fest.
Trust me, we sure will. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Great stuff. All right, buddy. Sign us out.
All right. This is Chief Engineer Rob Davis signing off.
And as ever, Captain Ron says, down ship.
This has been a Gonzo Goose production.
Be there.
Be there. Yeah, be there. Be there. class.
The
That's on
writer
me, folks. That's on me. I
writer has
write the
erred.
agendas.
And I read this over and I still missed it.